Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your presence today in the first Holograminar organized by WISeKey and ARHT Media. This is an unprecedented exhibition of technology and know-how in putting this together, as we are bringing three persons from different locations in the world and from different studios, all of them showing into one virtual stage as if they will be physically and presentially in the same place. So I have the pleasure to first beam into this webinar Larry O'Reilly, the founder and CEO of ARHT Media. Larry, welcome to the stage. Hey, Larry, great to be too. It's amazing, huh? You are in Toronto, I am in Geneva. We have the background on the beautiful Mont Blanc, and we are like if we will be in the same place. So Larry, what is the makes your technology so special, and how do you compete in this hologram space as a way to introduce to the audience your know-how and expertise on this? So I think we are beaming you out, and we are bringing another person. So while you're preparing some technical connectivity issues. So as we were saying, this is unprecedented technology. We are basically connecting through the internet. Imagine a presence in the cloud. So we are connecting speakers, and they're coming into a virtual environment, which is also a presidential environment. We're going to try to get David from New York. Wow, that was cool.
Hey, Carlos.
Hey, David.
Fancy meeting you here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a long time. The last time I saw you was actually in Davos, and that was in presence. And now we are connecting remotely. So how that feels like to be in a virtual stage together? This is the first time we do, right? We never did that before.
It is. Well, boy, it's certainly been an interesting year, and I know your days are filled with Microsoft Teams and Zoom and Skype meetings like mine. I think I for the most part become resigned to the fact that this is how we were going to live for the next couple of years until Larry O'Reilly came along with ARHT Media and said, no, we can bring you back together in the same place for all intents.
You know what is amazing? Yeah, what is amazing actually that this is actually connected with a very large audience in Zoom. So we have something like 150 people following us from Zoom, which shows that this is not a new technology that replaces everything else. This means that you can continue using Teams, Zoom, or any other video conferencing, and adding this this interaction, which makes more human, makes more emotional, than just seeing our face in 1D or 2D dimension in a Zoom call, right? What you have been working a lot on Zoom this year. Do you have a Zoom fatigue, and how you think this technology can actually in the financial sector bring back people to a more emotional interrelation, which is essential for, eyeballs are always important in closing deals and making transactions. What is your feeling about all this?
Well, I'll answer your first question. No, I actually don't feel that I'm experiencing Zoom fatigue. I wake up each morning. I go through my to-do list. I settle in front of my monitor, and typically, within an hour, I'm in front of at least one person. And through the course of the day, I would typically interact with probably approximately 20 people by Zoom, both in groups and one-on-one. In fact, Zoom has taken the place of the telephone for my interaction with my team members. And an interesting experience that I have is I've begun to travel again, obviously, very cautiously and I believe responsibly. But when I see somebody in a room physically that I've only communicated by Zoom with over the last 9 months, I feel like I was just yesterday that I was with them, because in fact I was, although not in not in 3 dimension, but by way of a Zoom call. You know, as you know, and many of the audience may know, my day-to-day focus is investment banking, and with an emphasis on mergers and acquisitions. And interestingly, we really haven't lost a beat through this pandemic. Our business has been very robust, I think, in large part because not only bankers like myself and our clients, but also investors and buyers have had more time that wasn't previously, isn't as it was previously, spent on airplanes and rental cars and in hotel rooms trying to shuffle two jobs, being on the road and being in the office. So
Sure.
the fact that Zoom has been available to us and related platforms has really allowed us, I think, to actually engage more and get to know one another more through what can be, you know, a 5 to 6 month process from beginning to end when a client
Totally.
decides that they want to exit the business. So this, I'm super excited about what Larry and Art Media have created, because I think this allows us to even go one step further. And I can certainly imagine, as I know you've envisioned, the ability to be able to execute documents by way of this media. I can actually see
Yes.
us returning to the closing table by way of a platform such as this, which all had been forgotten given the advent of digital closings several years ago.
Totally. And this is what, when I met Larry, I immediately visualized the future by saying, okay, this is one extension to Zoom. This is for me actually Zoom 2, you know, in terms of bringing the emotional part, which is not available in Zoom, although it's a very efficient way of communicating. I do something like 7 Zooms per day, and few, I'm on a 10 meet per day. But we get disenfranchised in terms of the emotion. Now I feel like I am talking to you in a bar, or in
Yeah.
a stage in front of people. By the way, we have hundreds of people in front of us which are virtually connected through the cloud. Now, the next extension of this technology, which we tested, you remember in Davos, we brought Soul Machine, which was one of the
Yes.
first, one of the first avatar that was created by a computer using artificial intelligence, that was able to answer questions in banks, in telephone desk, and it's actually replacing services in many places. But the avatar technology can be highly manipulated because the avatar is not me. Is an avatar. Whether this is me, I mean, although I am virtually connected with you, I am the person I say I am, and that's where the relation with Larry become immediately connectable, because
Yeah.
obviously his technology has huge security, because he has to encrypt the lines connection. I mean, now we are encrypting 3 lines coming from Toronto, New York, and Geneva. But we could, and that's what we are doing with WISeKey, by adding the digital identity of the person. And I will later debate a bit more that with Larry when Larry joins us in the stage. We are able to make a binding evidence that the person that is in the studio, in that case you and me, we actually are the person we say we are. And therefore, if the system recognizes our digital signatures, if we sign now a contract, you and I, let's say we are lawyers or we are CEOs of companies and we need to sign a contract, the contract that we're going to sign now here using this media is going to be reinforceable by law. It's going to be a binding document, because that document is based on digital signature, which is recognized by the digital signature legislation in all this country. So imagine the possibility of sending CEOs to sign contracts worldwide. Imagine the possibility of doing online voting. I mean, I'm going to ask you a question about the mess in the United States about the voting, the lack of trust. Imagine in the future using holograms to certify holograms to be able to vote for me online. I mean, you can extrapolate the sense of the technology endless. But you are from the financial sector, so do you see that as opportunity as well as I see it in other areas in your work?
You know, what a tremendous advancement that Soul Machines has made with the development of avatars, and they continue to expand the range of applications for that. But you're right, Carlos, it doesn't take the place of the real person. And this is why I think, you know, I really am excited about this gap that has been filled here by art, by allowing individuals to come together and do things together. I do believe that you know that trust will continue lie at the root of our technology objectives going forward. I think it's become commonplace for us to accept, and most you may have seen the news originating from the U.S. today with regards to a significant hack made here in the United States. Cybersecurity has certainly come forward in that since you developed WISeKey 20 years ago. Significant advancements have been made. Most importantly, I think all of us have come to the conclusion that we have to be cyber security aware, and we have to employ the best possible tools and resources. The ability to transact financially, we've certainly been witness to everyday the evolution of everyday financial practices in terms of digital banking, in terms of creating that trust structure, and not just for cryptocurrency, which of course has been at the forefront of dialogue recently, but for all trust-related transactions. And maybe this is a good opportunity for you to expand upon some of the things that WISeKey is doing in the arena of blockchain, and how that ties into to trust management with platforms such as this.
Absolutely. I mean, since I started my career in the UN and after in founding WISeKey, my vision was that the human being needs to be protected, right? Because I came from very early when 31 years ago, Tim Berners-Lee invented the web in Geneva. I was in Geneva, I was in the UN at that time. And we realized, and this was a great invention for inter-machines connections, so machines connecting with machines, and it has done an amazing work by connecting computers, connecting alarm system, connecting drones, connecting everything, 1 trillion things to be connected. But humans are not yet in that architecture. Actually, they were never in that architecture. So the web is blind. The web doesn't make the difference between a human and a drone, or a human and a camera. And it needs to make a difference. Otherwise, the web will replace us, right? And this was when I met you in 2016, when we organized the first roundtable in Davos about the fourth industrial revolution. The vision was, how can we really do it? I mean, everybody, it's a universal consensus. And I think we have been part of that consensus building process in everybody recognizing the human needs to be at the center of gravity. I mean, if you look now in the new publications, new movies, new books, humanity is back into the scene. But this is not yet reflected with technology. So although we know the what is being identified, the how has not been yet spelled out. And the reason is because, it's a $10 trillion economy, then they are actually monetizing the human without their consent. So there's where the new disruption in technologies like ledger distribution, blockchain. WISeKey just signed a few days ago a partnership with Hyperledger, which is one of the largest blockchain infrastructures in the world. So the possibility of using identities as a way to identify human and put those identities on ledger, which are not controlled by anybody, and then give the consent back to the person. So me as a person, I can consent whoever I want to use my identity and my data, is the disruption everybody's waiting for. And WISeKey is leading edge on that. We just made an acquisition with an artificial intelligence company in Germany with an Arago that basically also analyzes data, because not only I want my identity to be protected, but I also want the data I want to be protected as well. And I want that data to be on the custody of what we call data fiduciaries. So data fiduciaries are organizations that they are going to be handling data in a trusted way. And I, as an individual, I will trust this organization versus this other organization. So this data fiduciary industry is a massive industry. Is gonna basically ask the basic question to the consumer: who do you trust? Do you trust Facebook? Do you trust Amazon? Do you trust Apple, whoever? Or do you trust this other group, but just maybe more specialized and have less incentives in selling your data, because their business model is not monetizing your data? So maybe, and maybe we can jump a bit into the Transhuman Code, because I think the Transhuman Code has been an anticipatory book. It obviously covered a lot. based on that identity, then we move into health, we move into education, into government. I don't know if the production can just pass the video,
Yes.
just a
Great
few
idea.
seconds to introduce the subject of the Transhuman Code video while we are debating. But just my question to you before the video shows is, what is the progress do you think that book has done since 2016? For we first start to discuss the book in Davos, and the publisher published the book last year.
Well, you know, what's interesting, Carlos, is that it's come full circle. What began as a dialogue at Davos and evolved into a book project that we had the luxury of being able to workshop at that forum has, you know, in the end, I think what we realized was that the most important thing that we could do was to create a conversation, not only amongst the community, or continue the conversation amongst the community that contributed to the book, but also to start a conversation about the importance of keeping humanity at the center of gravity. And here, I think this is a perfect example today of what we're experiencing with all of the other platforms in front of us, and the advancement of technology that will take the human out. Here we've figured out a way. We forecast a number of things and through the development of the Transhuman Code, and but we didn't forecast the pandemic. But
Yes.
Here we've figured out a way to actually come together and host a dialogue with a growing number. I think we're up over 250 people I'm seeing in terms of participants here today now.
Yes, great.
With a dialogue that's occurring between Toronto, Geneva, New York, and literally around the world. I was very pleasantly surprised to see the number of emails and texts and WhatsApp chats over the last 4 or 5 days about how excited people were about this technology and how it could have a bearing on their day-to-day business activity.
So absolutely, and also you remember, and you organized that amazing meeting in the Vatican where we introduced the Transhuman Code in the Vatican to a very prestigious audience, both on private sector, but also ecclesiastic and philosophers. So this is going beyond technology. I think, and the World Economic Forum says the Great Reset, right, which is the need of the post-pandemic to reinvent themselves, and we will touch that later, a bit later during the pan-democracy discussion. But maybe, I don't know if the production is ready now with the video, so we can see the video and then continue the discussions. If not, I'll move into the. Okay, we are here. Great coordination.
Still on screen. I'll take a drink before it goes. So what do we think? Well, we're well off script here. We're in.
So we are back.
Well,
there was
when we I'm reminded, of course, that you know, when we were last physically together, we had just finished shooting half of the first segment of a 12-part series with CNBC. We had grand plans. We were going to be shooting 12 episodes in 12 different countries around the world on each of the subjects of that the chapters portray in the book. And here we are. This is the first time we're literally back together. We're not exactly in the same studio, but I'm excited, and I know I know our friends at CNBC are excited about this technology. So who knows what the next 12 months will bring,
Totally. I
Carlos?
think I'm anyway. I'm always an optimist in what concerns technology, because technology always surrounds the problem and disrupt the problem and makes the problem into an opportunity. Right. That has been the DNA
Yes.
of technology since the beginning. And actually, if we didn't have this terrible pandemic, which a lot of people have suffered and continue suffering, and this is terrible for the world, both health and labor and work and education. But the pandemic has forced us also to reinvent ourselves, right? And I think looking in a more philosophical way, I remember one of the sentences we say in the book is, are we building a better future for humanity with the help of magnificent technology? Or are we instead building a better future or better technology at the expenses of humanity? I think the second part was actually before the pandemic. People were just totally obsessed about technology. Technology was
Yeah.
driving our lives. People didn't care whether technology was protecting or not the human. Artificial intelligence was starting to become biased. Cybersecurity was data mining our data and destroying our privacy. You saw movies like the Social Dilemma. It started to appear to illustrate the problem. People started to realize that they were products, and that's why they was free, because being free means they are a product on what is offering to you for free. So the pandemic is resetting, using back the World Economic Forum nomination, all that thinking, and just putting the human back in the center. And we need to build a society where humans are protected, where human can thrive, where human can get educated, where they can have access to food, and the environment be protected. And this is the second part of what I think is going to happen after the pandemic. So maybe we can discuss a few minutes about, maybe we can close on that, on the Transhuman Code, and that will open the next project we have, which I think is amazing as well, with the Pan Democracy book, and then we are preparing. Go ahead, David.
Well, I could never have imagined what has evolved in terms of the advancement for social equality, occupational equality, medical equality, financial equality, educational equality, as a result of the tools and the deployment of technological innovation through this pandemic. So in an effort to restore to some level of normalcy what was being experienced in developed countries and across the broadest range of our population, we have found tools and or we have accelerated the use of tools that will serve us extremely well in developing countries. So look at the advancement of telehealth. Now I've become a serial COVID tester. I just finished test number 18 on Saturday, and in an effort to ensure that if I'm traveling, if I'm going to be interacting with team members and my clients, that I'm not compromising them potentially in any way. And I've done 11 telehealth interviews with doctors in advance, and sometimes in advance of those. And look at how easy that has become. It's literally within 15 minutes, I can schedule an appointment. I can meet with a doctor. They can transpose and transfer my file, and I can physically step inside to a clinic for a test. But even without having to physically visit a facility, I can get guidance and direction. My son had to undergo surgery, and not only did he receive guidance and direction through Zoom from physiotherapists as well as the surgeon post surgery, but he's also been able to access a broad range of online services to help guide, so that he didn't have to physically go back into a healthcare facility. So transfer that to sub-Saharan Africa, where we still have 2/3 of the population has never visited with a healthcare professional. Look at the advancements that we've made just in that realm alone.
Yeah, Absolutely. And again, and go back to the holopresence technology that we are experimenting today. I think this is a great opportunity for developing countries as well, because putting together an event, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. We know very well. We have
Yeah.
done that so many times. You need to fly people in, out. You pay hotels, cocktails, dinners, facilities. And it's so difficult for developing countries or even disadvantaged business to be able to have that kind of impact. This facility that we have today, we are experimenting.
Yeah.
It only requires 3 studios, one in Toronto, one in New York, one in Geneva. And the magic of the technology is doing the rest. So we feel that we are in a virtual environment. Maybe the production can run us a video on the different services that ARHT media offers in terms of
Great idea.
holographic presence. I think that will be great for the audience to get a grasp on the potential of the technology while we move into the next chapter, which is going to be the pan-democracy. So that would be great if you guys can pass the video.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Vancouver. Hey, Kevin. How you doing?
Is that yourself?
This is myself here with you in Vancouver on stage.
Welcome. It's great. It's great to see you. This works out really well. Where are you?
I am in Toronto, and we should tell your audience this isn't another one of those demos where I'm like not real.
Yeah.
I'm actually really here on stage with you in Vancouver as well.
Wow. Well, it's fantastic. You're looking well.
I was just asking if Dave could see us. Apparently he can.
I can. If anybody wants to try the technology, the experience is pretty much like standing on the stage in Vancouver. It's even 17 degrees and partly cloudy here in Toronto, so it's pretty much the same thing.
You can just use your imagination. Imagine, employee education meetings, benefits meetings, sending your CEO to open up something like these are all. What's amazing is technology is all accessible now.
Hi, Dave. My name's Samantha. How are you?
Hey, good. How you doing, Samantha?
I'm doing well, thank you. Super cool with the technology here. I'm actually blown away. I'm expecting like Captain Kirk or Spock to appear, so it was really, really well done.
I would go with Captain Kirk, but better looking.
Oh, higher. Okay.
I'll just say thank you to everybody in Vancouver. It was awesome to join you on stage.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Kevin.
Well, I think I'll close right there. So thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure this morning.
So here we are back. Amazing technology, and maybe for the audience
so cool.
to make the difference between what they just saw in the video and what we are doing here. In the video, actually, the person appears in front of a physical audience. So that's a meeting room with people, and the holographic representation, it's beamed into the event. And as you see, the interaction is really frictionless. It's an emotional connection. The speaker sees the audience can answer questions. By the way, on questions, because this is an important, you can send us your questions. The last 50 minutes of this event, we will answer those questions. So feel free to send your questions on the Zoom link, and we will answer those questions once we finalize that. So those interactions are amazing, emotional, because as I say, connects the audience with the speaker, and the speaker is not there. In our case, we don't have a physical audience in front of us, so we have actually a virtual audience in front of us, which is people connecting by Zoom. So it is another dimension. So we could actually mix both. There are cases where a round table, for instance, you could bring one person physically sitting on the round table and two person virtually arriving through holograms. So, I mean, the possibilities are endless, to involve personalities, VIPs, people with thought leaders, then they are extraordinarily demanded worldwide, and they cannot spend their lives on planes to do the same work with the same efficiency using this technology, right? It is mind-boggling, right? What do you think, David?
Yeah, well, this is one of the things that I've really come to appreciate. This is not a paid promotion, but I'm a big fan of the New York Times Deal Book, which is led by Adam Sorkin. This publication recently hosted their annual New York Times gathering. It's a very coveted ticket. I've had the great pleasure of being able to attend it several times, but it's a very relatively small audience, probably 1/1000th of the people that would like to be in the room. Yet it was available to everybody, and I think that that's advantageous. I'm personally spending more time watching content, reading, and interacting with video and projected content in editorial than I ever have before, and in large part because I feel like we've all been equalized. We've all experienced some level of restriction in terms of where we can go and what we can do. And I'm really interested in hearing what people's opinions are. So I'm looking forward to ARHT Media collaborating with other corporations and other thought leaders to bring them forward. And this interaction that happens between individuals is just so much more powerful, Carlos. I think you'll agree than static presentations. I've come to appreciate
Totally.
the opportunity to participate in a dialogue as opposed to solely listen. And so interacting by way of questions, as we saw in the video that was just played, is really powerful. And I think that's what takes this technology really to the next level, is it allows us to be transported anywhere, as we're seeing here, to interact with others that have been transported from elsewhere, and that third dimension, which is to interact directly with the audience that are participating.
So absolutely. So what I suggest is, because there's a lot of questions related to the technology itself. So why don't we beam the founder of the technology, Larry? Maybe he can join us now on the stage, and we can go with him into technology.
Oh, great.
Hey, Larry, you're here.
Hey, Larry, how are you?
Yeah, you can touch. You see?
Yes.
Yeah.
We tried. No, I'm back. Thank you.
Let's try it with me now.
All right, here we go. Excellent.
Yeah. Wow.
There
This
we
is
go.
like
We have to be careful. It's still a COVID world, even though you're 5,000 miles away.
Exactly. So yeah, we were chatting with David on the technology and all the possibilities that we have seen in that technology. But Larry, you have doing this for a long time. Maybe a bit of your history, where that come from, and how do you differentiate yourself with other hologram technologies, and where do you see the future going on this?
Well, I mean, I think our biggest point of differentiation is we really concentrate on live communication. You know, the company started off with doing very large-scale events with Tony Robbins and Gary Vaynerchuk and Stephen Hawking, where we beam people into an arena and there might be 5,000 people or more, where they can actually don't have to travel with their teams to another part of the world and yet can still connect with the audience. You know, the key thing is, as you saw in that video, if you're presented life-size and lifelike, and in 3D without the need for 3D glasses, and there's really no noticeable latency in the audio, then your brain is telling you the person's actually there in the room, and that's how you connect. And we call that creating presence, and that's really the key to the technology.
And how you obviously this excites everybody. You know, it's a wow factor. I mean, every time, even now, when I'm looking myself in the screen, I keep saying wow to myself. But how companies that they have deployed that, what is the feedback they are giving you? Is that helping their business? Where is the concrete bottom line for them in using this technology?
Well, I mean, the key feedback that we're getting is it's really quite interesting because, you know, when I joined this company 3 years ago, they were really underselling the technology because they were presenting it as the next best thing to actually being there in person. But the reality is, you know, David, in the financial services sector, we have large corporations like BlackRock who report back to us that they actually achieve higher levels of engagement, higher levels of content retention, higher levels of entertainment value than as compared to those exact same presenters being there in person. And similarly, in the pharma space, you know, we're seeing much higher net promoter scores on events where the presenters, who are a team that present consistently, educating doctors and other healthcare professionals on their vaccines or medicines and whatnot, we've seen net promoter scores go from 50 to 55 all the way up into the 90s. And so that's a huge jump, and it's because of this human connection. It's about the wow factor. It's about getting your attention and holding it. And then about a third of the people who have reached out to us over the course of the last 9 months or so, their number one or number two reason that they want to use the technology is that they are consciously trying to reduce their carbon footprint. And
Yes.
last year, if you recall, at Davos, you guys were both there. CEO after CEO would go to the lectern and say, "We will be carbon neutral by this date." And it
Yes.
really was the thing that almost everybody was talking about was reducing their carbon footprint until the coronavirus took over the communication. But it's still a very important initiative. And professional services companies, sometimes over 80% of their carbon footprint is actually flying executives to meetings. So by reducing the need, not eliminating the need, but just reducing the need to actually do that every single time, it's a great way to employ the technology. And probably the most important thing is that, and to the point, David, that you were making about regarding Zoom, is you really increase the efficiency of your subject matter experts. I have days where I beam in as a hologram into London from Toronto. I do a couple of meetings in London. Then I might beam into New York and do a meeting or two in New York. Then I beam into LA, do one or two in LA, and I might end my day in Hong Kong or Singapore, and I haven't left Toronto. And that's really, really powerful. And the feedback when you're doing that from the other side, from the client side, is, at the end, they almost say, okay, I feel like I've got to reach over and shake your hand because I feel like you're here in the room with me. It's pretty powerful.
And Larry, we are starting to get in questions, and one of the questions we are getting, which I think is important, and we clarify, is this something that is available for SMEs, small enterprises? I know that you can put a pod in your organization, and with that pod, transmit yourself anywhere in the world. But maybe you can give us a sense of the investment that needs to be done in order to run something like that.
Sure. And, historically, the company was focused, as I mentioned, where it was on the event side of the business. And the event side of the business will continue to be important. It's a great way to get people to a major event that they can't get to otherwise. Or, as I mentioned, you can be more efficient in terms of bringing these people together. But really, our focus is actually revolutionizing communication every day. And really what we're expecting, especially for larger organizations, that we will have our HoloPresence display, which is our in-person 3D hologram display technology at major offices around the world, and then capture studios in key locations where most of the talent resides, so that if you are in a place where there's a concentration of expertise, as an example, our very first holopod is at University Health Network in downtown Toronto. In Canada, there's a serious density of expertise along University Avenue, where they have specialists from all different types of disciplines within the medical community, where there are communities throughout our country that would love to have access to this expertise, and so they can do that at any time. So, the capital cost is around $100,000 for both a capture and a display, and then the ongoing costs are actually relatively modest. And I've had organizations, depending on how much travel you do for your business, but I've had organizations tell us, well, we'll recoup our investment in less than 6 months.
Yeah, and obviously the marketing possibility, because all that is recorded, you can use in social media. Actually, while we are talking, will be good if the production can see whether our event is being promoted today on Times Square at the NASCAR Tower. So that will be great to see, because then we will actually close the loop by having a virtual event, which is virtually transmitted in a physical location, which, by the way, is nobody today due to the COVID situation, but at least we are in Times Square. So here we are.
There we are.
So that's great. And while this is display, David, there's a question about China. So I will start with you, and after continue with Larry. The question is, can we do that from China? China is a high-tech country, and would love to deploy this type of technologies. Maybe the question I would like to split into two. One is to progress report on the Transhuman Code in China, David,
Yes.
and then Larry, what is your suggestion to bring our Chinese friends into this?
Well, yes, we're very excited after a delay in the spring as a result of the pandemic. We're delighted that the Transhuman Code will be launching formally on later this month. And Carlos, you'll remember that part of the request from our publisher, CITIC Publishing, China's largest was that we be available for 60 to 90 days of travel through the course of a year. We thought that that was perhaps a little bit ambitious, but we said we'll figure something out as we get closer. Well, Larry, you couldn't have come along at a better time. We're looking forward to you transporting us all over China while I'm sitting in my family room in New York and Carlos in the vineyard in Geneva.
Absolutely. And we're doing that all the time. So our partner in ARHT Asia is a company called Netdragon Websoft. They're a publicly traded company that's based out of Fuzhou and traded and in Hong Kong and traded on the Hong Kong exchange. But we've been operating in China for a few years. It's a great market, as you rightly point out, Carlos. It's a very tech savvy, tech forward marketplace. And so we have a studio in Hong Kong. We have one in Fuzhou. Last year, the primary focus of the activations that we did in China were all around promoting the benefits of 5G technology. So we were often used by China Unicom as a primary telco, and they would do events largely around education, where we would beam professors or even high school physics teachers from one city into another city, and they would give a lecture. And to your point, Carlos, those are all recorded. And so once you have that expertise being shared, you can actually play it back time and time and time again in the different markets. And so it's a very, very powerful medium. We did an event just 2 weeks ago in China, which was with a pharma company, where we were beaming in from California expertise into a couple of different cities simultaneously. One of the things that's nice about our tech is you can capture a person in one location, you can beam them out to as many locations as you would like, and they can interact in real time. So you, once again, make that subject matter expert very, very efficient. The other thing we can do is we can actually capture people in different cities, like we are here today, bring everybody together on one stage. Here we're now presenting it digitally online, but we can also do it holographically for an in-person experience as well.
What's being proposed, and Carlos is watching the board. The questions are continuing to roll here. But one of the things that was anticipated by Civic Media for the launch of the Transhuman Code was actually bringing together thought leaders across all of the industry sectors that we touched on in the book. So transportation, finance, of course, health, education. And I can see this as being of even greater value with the individuals that we'll have access to. So we're not going to be competing with schedules that we would when we're trying to move somebody from one location to another. And we're going to be able to open it up to such a much, much larger audience that will witness that interaction. So it's just such a powerful medium, Larry.
It is, and you mentioned earlier, David, about that you're communicating with healthcare experts through telemedicine over Zoom, which is great. One of the things that excites the medical community is the notion of doing consults either before or after, or therapy post a surgery or an event. And in a way whereby there's a trust built between the caregiver and the patient, the expert and the patient. And when you have full form body, you get all the body language, all those cues help to build the trust. And especially when we're considering mental health, which is finally getting to the main stage in a bigger way in terms of consideration in the middle of a pandemic where everybody's mental health is being challenged to a certain degree. Building that trust and communication in a more intimate and powerful way is an important part of actually delivering the therapy.
Well, this is where your technology really goes the extra distance in affording the interaction as opposed to simply projecting a presenter.
For sure.
For sure. One other question is available to us here is, what is the partnership between WISeKey and ARHT Media, and talk about some of the use cases. So maybe I can start, Larry, if you allow me, and then you can continue. But basically, the way we see or extension of this certification of the person. I mean, the vision is always the same. A person, when enters into the internet, is not recognized by the internet. Therefore, the certification, digital certification of that person is essential. But that digital certification of that person can morph into many things. It can morph into digital signature of a document, can morph into securing your email, can morph into do a e-voting. WISeKey helped the Geneva government in 2002 to do the first ever electoral online transaction using the internet, where we vote democratically for elections, government elections. And I think the next extrapolation of that digital certification is the either the avatar, and we tested avatar technology, although I am not 100% convinced because the avatar can be manipulated graphically, or the hologram, which is what I believe is a breakthrough. Because if my hologram can conduct a transaction, therefore that transaction has a legal value recognized by law, and this will change it will be basically a game changer in the way we run transactions, whether there is a doctor doing a transaction, whether it's a businessman, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's a government. Actually, one of the projects that we are trying to organize in Geneva, is the 100th year of the Société des Nations, which is the organization that precedes the United Nations. And I have been talking with the local government to the possibility, because governments cannot travel to Geneva, due to the lockdown, to do that using holograms. What about if we sign a declaration 100 years after the Société des Nations using our hologram? So those are the kind of partnerships that we will be fostering with ARHT Media, is what I call the trusted transactional hologram. An hologram that can do the same thing I will do if I will be present in the location.
Yeah, and I think beyond that, we are as we've moved into more of this core communication on a daily basis, we're entering into these master services agreements with very large organizations, and security is probably the biggest thing that they're really quite focused on, because if they're looking at using the communication tool to bring board members together to talk about strategies, to make corporate decisions and sign off on declarations, or if they have senior executives that are doing strategy sessions either within their own teams or at an executive level of the company, or for that matter, you have your R&D team, doing presentations to senior executives to sign off on budgets and strategies and priorities and timelines. Obviously, being able to have a third-party source that gives an extra layer of security and verification that it isn't, somebody hacking in and presenting on behalf of the head of R&D. It's actually the guy who is the head of R&D making that presentation and that recommendation that we invest these many millions of dollars in advancing this new technology that they might be working on. It really helps to build that trust within those organizations, and one of the key reasons as well that I'm excited about the partnership.
Absolutely. And by the way, we have already won first contract there, a deal. Organization is organizing an upcoming investors call that he's hosting, and he would like to do it using this technology. It's actually perfect for this kind of, organizing. For instance, General Assembly. I have to organize my own General Assembly as a listed company last year virtually because we could not bring more than 10 people in one place at the same time. So imagine the possibility of running General Assemblies using that. By the way, the question is where to contact. You can contact Larry or myself at WISeKey or ARHT, and we will take care of that request. The email, the website is ARHT, ARHT Media, MEDEI, media, arhtmedia.com or wisekey.com. So there's another question which I think is important, because that's one of the first questions I asked myself when I wanted to do this test. Is a bandwidth an issue? I mean, people are saying, do you need a 5G or a T3 to organize this? Because it's so reactive. I mean, the quality of the image is amazing. There is no delay in the sun. It looks like we are actually in one place. So do we need a special telecommunication infrastructure to guarantee something like that?
No, the platform actually works with readily available volumes of internet. When we're doing just a one-to-one, if I'm being captured here in Toronto and presenting in Geneva as a full-form hologram, all we need is 10 megabits up and down for that stream. Here we're talking about 3 streams, so we need 10 for each of the streams. But even that at 30 megabits is obviously a very modest amount of bandwidth. However, the beauty of 5G is it just creates that much more pipe. So the worry is not necessarily on our end. The worry is sometimes when we get up into the cloud and where things are going and we're connecting. And one of the things that differentiates ARHT Media from others playing in this space is that we have servers in strategic locations around the world where there are, bottlenecks with the internet, and we have workarounds for those particular bottlenecks so that it doesn't really matter where you want to go. We can get you there in 0.3 seconds or less, anywhere on the planet, and we do. And it also helps that we have, studios in London, and this one that you're in Geneva. We have a partner in Tel Aviv. We have one in Toronto and New York and Los Angeles, and we have them in Hong Kong and Fuzhou and Singapore and Seoul, and that network's growing, of permanent locations as well.
By the way, I would like to give credit to the Geneva team and the amazing work you have done to make this possible. I was so surprised to learn that this was available in Geneva. And maybe can you remind me the organization and the relation they have with you, Larry?
Yeah, so
Dorier.
is the name of the AV specialists that are based in Geneva. They're actually the biggest AV supplier in the world. They have a very big footprint all over Europe, and significant in South America as well, and into Asia. And so we've partnered with Dorier. We've done events with them in Tokyo, obviously in Europe and in Germany, like in Switzerland here and in Germany. And they're tremendous people to work with. And especially if you are doing business in Switzerland, you'd be crazy not to be working with these guys.
Totally, and I have been working with a mother company, MCI Events, as I know Sebastian and his father very well for many years, and we have been doing a lot of projects together. So this is great cooperation. And in that sense, it's another question which I think is very punctual, as we are in the watch city of the world, Geneva, where all these beautiful watches are made. So the question is, can you bring watches as a product launch in this? Or what is required basically to do a watch product launch using the same setup that we have here? Thinking that Geneva has Rolex and Patek Philippe and Hublot and Bulgari, all the watches are here, and they spend millions of dollars organizing product launch, sometimes much less efficient as if it will be done using this type of facility, especially recognizing that WISeKey already secures 1 million watches in Switzerland. So we can not only prove, as we do here, that the person is a real person, but we can also prove that the object is a real object by providing an authentication at the product level. Any ideas on how we can approach that industry and answer that question from the watch manufacturer in Geneva, Larry?
Sure. I mean, we've been used for product launches for a number of years, and the beauty, if it's an in-person experience, is that it's in 3D without the need for 3D glasses. So you can imagine that you can really show some of the features and the true beauty and craftsmanship and artisanship to create these incredible timepieces in 3 dimensions. And we all know that when we see things in 3 dimensions, which is how our brain is wired to see the world, it resonates in a more impactful way, which is great. We've also been doing product launches using this particular platform right here. So our online platform is called Virtual Global Stage. Here in Toronto, or in Canada, the biggest builder of condominiums is a company called Tridel, and they are an upmarket, very high quality product. And in September, they used our platform to actually launch a new condo that they were going to be releasing for sale in downtown Toronto. And the beauty of it is, we had the architect speak, we had a designer speak. At the end, we had their head of sales talk about the different units that would be available and how much they were going to be. And it was a massive success. I mean, they ran it on a Saturday. They called us the following Tuesday saying, hey, we've got another product to launch next month. We're going to be using your platform again. And they did. And we came into a strategy meeting about, okay, how do we want to change things up on the next one? They said, we don't want to change a thing. We're going to change the building. We're going to change some of the graphics. But the first time that people saw this product launch using this platform, it really resonated with them, and it was a big hit for our launch.
Thank you very much. As we only have a few minutes left, I would like to return back again to the Transhuman Code and the next stage. And by the way, I would like to invite you, Larry, to be interviewed by us as we are writing a new book with the name Pan Democracy. So The
Terrific.
Pan-Democracy is an extension of the Transhuman Code. The Transhuman Code, we covered the technology and the potential application in multiple sectors, from water, climate change, education, health, government. In the Transhuman Code, we are defending a thesis, which is that if the fourth industrial revolution can be viewed as a meta software, let's imagine, the entire world is run by software now. The software has operating systems that run the complexity of those machines and the trillion objects connected to the internet. And the thesis that we are defending is that the OS, the operating system that we used before the pandemic, which we call OS 1.0, it's obsolete. It needs to be upgraded to a much more sophisticated software, which we call OS 2.0, which is the one then we are going to be deploying globally after we get rid of this terrible virus. The virus is actually accelerating the digital transformation. I have seen an unprecedented decision-making process in converting countries in digital-friendly country. We can already know, but for sure, than countries that they had done well in the pandemic. There have been countries that they had been using technology in a very proactive way, and countries that they are less digitally transformed, they are suffering more. And that's surprises on that. I mean, it is amazing how politicians are realizing that the digital transformation is a key element of reducing the effect of the pandemic, both in health and in commerce and unemployment. But the vision of this OS 2.0 is that because we need to design a new OS, let's do it properly. And let's do it with a human person on the middle of the center of gravity. And let's include the 6 billion people that the world has versus than just an elite like happened in the OS 1.0 that was designed by only a bunch of engineers in Silicon Valley and imposing their thinking to the rest of the world. So we want a world that is more inclusive and a world that has more reference. So we are interviewing leaders, thought leaders like you, like university leaders, MIT. We are being in the Transhuman Code. We have a very impressive list already of leaders, and this is going to continue. And our objective of David and I is to print the book next year after we finalize the first cycle, which was the Transhuman Code. So I just wanted to say that because this is an important roadshow as well. We're going to be organizing holograminars on this subject, bringing thought leaders, and together develop this operating system the world needs. Any conclusion views, both of you, David and Larry, so we close the amazing event that we're organizing?
I'm going to guess, Carlos, that when Larry stepped onto this digital stage today, whilst he's been witness to tremendous transformation and he's contributed to that through ARHT Media, that he probably wasn't expecting to be asked to be a father of the next generation of democracy. Were you, Larry?
Absolutely not. And I feel quite honored to be invited to participate in some small way in your next venture. I think that you guys are.
I was just going to say, I think this you've certainly earned a place in the history book that's being written. This technology, I think, can make a great contribution towards a higher level of equalization and democratization. It's an exciting time ahead of us now.
I think you're right, and it's interesting because whenever you introduce something that's new and revolutionary, people are trying to understand it. They're trying to understand it for themselves. They're trying to understand it so that they can communicate that with their peers or their bosses at work to try to get adoption of the technology. And I mean, if you have the opportunity to come into one of our studios, and I invite people to do so somewhere in the world to actually experience, communicating live with a full form holographic individual, it's a really powerful experience, and you get that connectivity. And one of our sales guys in New York, Terry Davis, he likes to call it, we are rehumanizing the digital experience, and I think that obviously that's what you're doing with the research and the thesis that you're bringing forward in your past book and your next one as well. But I believe that we might have a small role to play in the global effort to actually have that human connection come back and being enhanced by digital communication, as opposed to being compromised somewhat by digital communication.
Well, I think next up, Carlos referenced earlier that we had the great pleasure 1 year ago to be invited to the Vatican to talk about the advancement of humanity and technology's relationship. And we are just now in the process of scheduling our next visit. We've been invited to come back in March. The Papal University, of which the Pope sits on the board, is just getting ready to roll out in January a new online educational series of the ethics of technology. And we're delighted to have been invited back by the Pope's representatives to convene again. And perhaps that's where we'll see you next, physically or digitally.
Yeah. That would be terrific.
Let's beam the Pope. That would be an amazing scoop. We can do that.
I think he'll be very excited about that.
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. I would like just maybe to conclude on one area which I think is important, is that both ARHT Media and WISeKey, we are listed companies in Canada and in the Nasdaq and in Switzerland in the case of WISeKey. And it's important that the institutional investor community starts to pay attention to these synergies of companies that they are mid-sized companies, but they are developing what I believe is going to be disruptive technology. So I know, David, that you are in contact with that financial community. Please reach out to them and explain that there is trailblazers on this new generation of what it can be done to disrupt totally this segment, which is, I believe, it's going to be transformed in the same way telcos were or financial sectors were transformed. So with that, I would like to thank you both for your amazing participation. I know we have some glitches in the beginning, but it's actually proving that this is actually done real time, you know, so it's human. And we managed to go out of script and still cover all the points we wanted to cover. I would like to thank also the audience for their amazing participation, both in numbers and participation in questions. And to be honest, I am so impressed about this team working behind their professionalism, the way they have organized that in such a short time. So I would like to thank the staff from both ARHT Media, WISeKey, and the labs, and they have been using the studios, and they have been using to beam host here for their amazing participation. We're going to be announcing very soon new events like that, but obviously you got the sense of what can be done is really endless. So please feel free to contact ARHT Media, Larry, myself, David, WISeKey, and we would love to work with you in putting the next scoop on the next event, which I'm sure is going to get better and better. So with that, I would like to close this Holograminar. Thank you both for your presence. You can be beam out now just to see how you disappear. And before you do that, I would like to thank you and see you soon.
And Carlos, my mother would like to thank you for having my face on the...
Sorry, can we beam Larry back? He wanted to say something.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just saying, Carlos, and my mother would like to thank you for beaming my face up onto the Times Square on the Nasdaq Tower. Look forward to the next time. Thanks so much.
Me too. All the best,
Larry.
Thank you, everybody. All the best. I'm beaming out now.